Hello, welcome to White Davy Gardening and Worm Farm. Today we are going to be having a discussion on organic pesticide. We're going to be comparing it with synthetic pesticide. Hi, Han White. Right, so we're going to be comparing the two types of pesticide. We're going to be looking at the advantages and the disadvantages of both. And we're going to see that what we choose to use is based on our preference. So, first, we're going to start off by discussing what organic pesticide is and what synthetic pesticide is. Hi, Helpy. You're here. Good. I'm doing okay, my dear. Hi, Hoity Robinson. How are you? Yes, I'm doing okay so far. Right. Let's see. Okay, you're saying hi to Anne. Okay, so what is organic pesticide? By definition, it is any pesticide that is naturally occurring, such as that those derived from either plants, animals, or minerals. These are easily broken down into the soil. In fact, they do not last very long into the soil. So the microbes in the soil and the weather is what will break down organic pesticide. One example of organic pesticide is pyrethrin, which is an extract from chrysanthemum. Let's see, the pieces that's supposed to say, "How are you?" Okay. Yeah. I don't know what's going on with these devices these days. They're supposed to be more advanced, but then when you type one thing and you press send and then you realize that hit made its own suggestion, so you end up typing something other than what you intend. But that's okay. I guess we've all experienced it, so we know what's going on. And let's see. Okay, still saying greetings. Whitey says, "Oh, how often should I put food in my ground worm bin?" I'd recommend you put food in there as often as you see your worms are eating it. So, say for example, you usually put the same amount of food in there all the time, and you notice that it takes them 2 days to finish it or to almost finish it, then you top them up again. So, it's based on how fast they are eating. And since as it is an indoor bin, sometimes in the winter, since as it is an in-ground bin, and during the winter season, depending on where you are, it may get colder, so they will eat slower than during the warmer months. So you just have to watch to see how they how often they feed, how much they're eating, and then that will determine how often you give them food. Let's see. LP says, "You are so right. Sometimes my smartphone isn't very smart. It's a little bit too smart for its own good." Yes, I've had those mistakes so many times. So these days I'm trying to teach myself to critique the things I write so that I can go correct my mistakes before sending them out. But you know how it is sometimes, especially in a discussion like this where you're trying to write fast and try to keep up with what's going on. Sometimes you don't really have the time to go back and read what you type, and you know what you type, so you're expecting that to come on the screen. But it's just another part of life, no worries. Okay, so we look at what organic pesticide is. Now, what is synthetic pesticide? Synthetic pesticide is any pesticide that is made by a chemical process, but it should be noted that if a naturally occurring pesticide gets changed by chemical process, even though it was originally naturally occurring, once it goes through changes caused by chemical processing, then it becomes, or it is considered, synthetic pesticide. Now, there's one thing that tends to get a lot of us into trouble because we see organic and we see synthetic, so we start to think, okay, organic must be good, synthetic must be bad. And yes, rightly so, but then organic pesticides can at times not be safe, and synthetic pesticide does not necessarily mean that that pesticide is dangerous. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. So, because something is organic doesn't necessarily mean that it is always good. So, read your labels if you're going to be getting pesticides. Let's see what it says. 2 days. Whoa, they're starving by now. Haven't put food in the container in the ground. Wow. So when I say 2 days OIT, I'm not saying that you are to feed them every 2 days. I was just giving an example. So there are some of us who every time we have food scraps that we collect for a day, we go and we put it in the worm bin. And then there are those of us who will wait a week to put all of the food scraps that we gathered over that time in the worm bin. And then there are those of us who have a specific time schedule for feeding the worms. So my recommendation is just that you monitor the bin and see how fast they're eating. So say for example you give them food. I don't know how many worms you have in the bin out there. So, say for example, you give them food and you notice that you give them X amount of food and they wax it off within 3 days. Then you know that every 3 days you have to make sure you give them that same amount of food or more. Or if you give them certain amount of food and you think that they should finish it within a short period of time and they're taking longer to finish it, it means that you don't need to feed them as often as you were feeding them. So it all depends on how they're eating, how fast or how slow they're eating. But the colder the temperature, the slower they're going to eat. So just keep an eye on that and gauge it. Of course, the more you feed them, and as time passes, their population is going to grow. So they're going to be needing either more frequent feeding or they're going to be needing more food each time you feed. So you just have to watch them and see how the rate at which they're eating, and then you feed them accordingly. Let's see. Right, you were saying hello to Healthy. Okay. Right. So, what are some of the advantages of organic pesticides? For one, they break down quite easily in the soil and they leave little residue behind. So, that is one advantage of the organic pesticide. Two, the biological organic pesticides can be specific to different types of pests. For example, BTK is good at controlling things like cabbage moth, cabbage loopers, and tomato hornworms, whereas BTI is good at containing or controlling the larvae of fungus gnats and mosquito larvae or black fly larvae. Now, one thing about pesticide, organic pesticide, as I mentioned, that they are specific. There are some pesticide that will kill the adult and not the larvae or the eggs, whereas there are some pesticide that will kill the larvae and the eggs and not affect the adults. So when you're buying these things, it is a good idea to always read the label, because these biological organic pesticide does not kill. They're not a broad spectrum pesticide. So sometimes they are, which is another reason why you have to read the label. But it's a good idea to read because then you want to make sure that the pest that you have, the pesticide that you're getting, will get rid of them. Now, because biological organic pesticides are pest specific, they can be used on targeted pests without harming beneficial insects. So that is another advantage of using organic pesticide. But what about synthetic pesticide? What are some of the benefits? For one, they are not as expensive as organic pesticides. You know how it is already, where anything that is in high demand is usually pretty expensive. And as the world is more conscious, health conscious these days, so naturally, since as organic pesticide is considered to be better, then it's going to be more expensive. And sometimes it's not that it takes long to produce compared to the synthetic, but because of the quality of it, then it tends to be more expensive. Hi, Princess, how are you? Yes. Now, another advantage of synthetic pesticide is that it has a longer, it lasts longer in the soil, and because of that, you get a wider coverage from it than you would from the organic pesticide. So it gives you longer lasting protection than the organic pesticide. Now, another advantage is that because it lasts longer in the soil, then you don't have to apply it as frequently as you would with the organic pesticide. Another advantage of the, excuse me, another advantage of the synthetic pesticide is that it is readily available and it also has a longer shelf life than does the organic pesticide. So you're okay. So you're lucky to be here just listening. Okay, good. I'm glad that you could make it. Right. So it has a longer shelf life and it is more readily available than the organic pesticide. I wonder if Hannah can see it. I don't know. Can you please go and close the door behind you? Thank you. Sorry about that. So, what are the disadvantages of organic pesticide? Because sorry, not yes. So, because the organic pesticide break down quickly, then it requires more application than the synthetic pesticide, and because it is more pest specific, it is important to know the type of pest that you have before you go out and purchase these organic pesticide, because you don't want to buy just about any organic pesticide and then you come home and find out that it's not working. So it is good to know the type of pest you're having, know their life cycle and things like that, and then that will help you to make your choice when selecting your organic pesticides. Now, some organic pesticide may require specific handling for it to be more effective. So there are some pesticides like using nematodes as a pesticides. Sometimes they have to be kept refrigerated. So special handling may be required depending on the type of organic pesticide that you are using. And as I say, being organic doesn't always mean that the pesticide is safe. There are actually some organic pesticides that are poisonous. So you have to be careful. These ones that are poisonous, though they usually say on the label that they are poisonous, and they usually tell you how long or how close to harvest you can use it, to make sure that when you do harvest, your produce is safe. And sometimes it is harmful. Some organic pesticides can be harmful to humans. Some of them can be harmful to animals. There are some, for example, that might be harmful to dogs, some might be harmful to cats, and so forth. So, again, it is very important to pay close attention to the labels. Another disadvantage of the organic pesticide is that it can be very expensive. But of course, if it helps to save the environment and to protect you from harmful chemicals, then naturally it is definitely worth the expense. Not to mention that because it is so pest specific, it does not really harm the beneficial insects in most cases, that is. So it is definitely worth the expense. Let's see. Princess says, very true about being cautious. Example when using chili peppers. Oh, okay. I've never really used chili pepper as a pesticide, but I came across it in my research that it can be used, but I've never really used it. Have you used it as a pesticide, Princess? And what about it would be harmful? And to what? Would it be to the animals or to the plants that you're using it on? Hope I'm not putting you on a spot. Right. Another disadvantage of the organic pesticide is that some of them are more effective than others. So you just have to play around with them, see what works. Yeah. And then we're going to be looking now at the disadvantages of the synthetic pesticide. One of the biggest disadvantages to the synthetic pesticide is that it can be, not always is, but it can be harmful to the environment. It may affect your harvest time if the instructions are not followed. So because they are synthetic and they can be harmful, the label usually tell how close to harvest it can be used. So such instruction need to be followed as closely as possible. I remember my brother-in-law, we went to visit him, and he had a neighbor that is always using pesticide in his garden. And at one point in time, he got really sick and he could not figure out why it is that he was just getting sick and he wasn't doing anything different. And the doctors couldn't figure out what was going on for quite a while. And then afterward, they realized that it was because he was using the pesticide and not reading the instructions. So, because of that, it was making him sick, almost killed him. And so, from that, we learned that it is very important that we follow the instructions. Sometimes we just want to get in and out with whatever we're doing, get it done. And so, we might neglect to read the instructions, but our lives and the lives of the people who are going to be coming in contact with our produce, whether they are eating it or they are going into our garden or pet can be affected. So it is important to pay close attention to the labels because some damage cannot be undone. Let's see. Princess says never use it as a pesticide, but it can get in pets' eyes like cats and dogs. Oh, okay. Hi, John Hughes. How are you? Let's see. LP says, oh, that would be so bad, Princess. Yes, I can just. That would be really bad. I've had pepper get in my eyes already, and it's not a nice feeling, and it is the Jamaican Scotch bonnet pepper at that. It takes quite a long while before the pain subsides, so we definitely wouldn't want the pets to get affected by that chili pepper. Let's see, LP says, oh my gosh, really? He's very lucky. He's okay. That's scary. Yes, it was a very scary experience for him, but I guess he learned his lesson after that. And I guess those who are aware of his story, hopefully they learn from it as well, because I mean, sometimes we try to take a shortcut, but as they love to say in Jamaica, shortcut draw blood. So sometimes we try to take a shortcut and we end up with more problems than we would like to have. So we end up spending more time or losing more time than if we had gone the long road. So, yes, it's good practice to pay close attention to the labels before we use pesticide. Let's see. John says he's better now that he got home from work. Yes, I can just imagine I'm going to have to go to work right after this, and I'm not looking forward to it. So I can just imagine how you feel. Let's see, it says checking on some plants, still hanging on. Okay, still hanging in there. Okay. Let's see, LP says, you are in Texas. You must still have a fair bit of crop around. Yes, well, that's nice for those who can still have crop outdoors. I wish I could still have a garden outdoors, but anyway, that's life. Don't have that option. But it would be nice. Okay, so we were looking at the disadvantages of synthetic pesticide. Another very big disadvantage of some synthetic pesticide is that they can lead to cancer. So it's a good advice, like I keep mentioning, and you notice I keep stressing this point, the importance of reading the labels. Don't forget to read the fine prints as well, because sometimes the fine print is what is most important on that label. So don't forget to read the fine prints. And if you have an option where synthetic or organic pesticide is concerned, then always go try to go with the safer one. Sometimes it is not necessary, always an option, but where possible, it is a good advice to go with the organic, or at least if you're going to use synthetic, go with the least harmful. Let's see, LP says, my garden is organic, though I am not opposed to using organic pesticides like BT and DE. Is diatomaceous earth considered a pesticide? Yes, it is considered a pesticide because it does get rid of any pest that has a waxy exoskeleton. So whether it's ants, some mites, or what's the other aphid, stuff like that. So it is considered a pesticide. Let's see. Princess says, oh yes, a few plants still hanging on outside, but need to cut them down now. I have only one dahlia pot left. Okay, that's cool that you can have those outdoors. See, John says, yes, but have held off on winter garden as I am moving in a few days. Going to take my plants with me and see if they will handle the move. Okay, awesome. I hope you have a safe journey as you relocate and that you will enjoy this home more than the previous one. And hopefully, the plants will survive the trip. So where are you moving to? Are you still going to be staying in that same state or province? Are you going somewhere where the climatic change is different from where you are now? Let's see. LP says, good luck with that, John. You'll still get a garden then? Or get to garden then? Oh, you're going only a mile or so away. Oh, that's not bad then. Yeah, your plants should be safe. Okay, that's cool. Yes, I agree with that, Princess. Diatomaceous earth must not be inhaled by humans and animals, pets. Because when you think about it, diatomaceous earth is actually fossil rock particles. And so you know that the body cannot process rocks. So if you inhale it, it's going to stay in the body and it can cause harm, can affect your sinuses, it can lead to all sorts of different problems. So it's best to use a dust mask when handling the diatomaceous earth. Let's see. John says, oh yes, moving beds and taking soil as well. Oh, nice. Yeah, must be nice that you're not going too far, so you're able to move your beds and take the soil with you as well. It can be tedious if you have to start your garden all over again. Yeah, so it's pretty good that you can take your beds and soil with you. LP says, oh wow, John, that's a project. Yes, I guess that is one of the fun projects. I don't like moving, too much work involved. Well, if it is moving the garden, then it will be fine, but moving on a whole is just so much work. It will be fun to see the difference just a mile away, if there's any difference in how your garden perform. Let's see, princesses have a successful move, John. John says, helps having friends with tractors and dump trailer. Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so disadvantage of synthetic pesticide. One of the disadvantage is that it is less pests specific than the organic pesticide, and so it may harm the beneficial insects that are in your garden. CLP says, I bet. I was wondering if you've got some heavy equipment. Yes, as I was saying, some because the most synthetic pesticide are not pest specific, so they may harm beneficial insects. Unfortunately, sometimes even the organic ones will or may harm the beneficial insects, but sometimes we don't have a choice because the only way to get the pest under control is to use these pesticide, whether organic or inorganic. But the synthetic ones are more likely to harm the beneficial insect than most of the organic ones. And that is one reason why it is so good to use preys, predators, beneficial predators as your pest control in your garden, because then they won't be harming the beneficial insects and you won't have side effects such as um, pollution or residue from pesticide remaining on your plants or in your soil. You won't have a side effects like illnesses resulting from it. So the best form of pest control is actually to use beneficial insects. Let's see. LP says, I think synthetic pesticide might also have made us lazier over the years because organic is more work. That is true. That is true. And then for those who have a large garden or a large farm, it can be so expensive to buy organic pesticides that they will go with the cheaper option. Unfortunately, sometimes the problems that these create can take a really long time for us to rectify, if they can be fully rectified, though. Hi, Rodney. What's up? Okay, help you saying good evening to Rodney. John says we don't need the aluminum that's in those products. Yes, that is true. Yeah, so I've never used synthetic pesticide. But one thing that we need to keep in mind when we are buying pesticide, sometimes we will see pesticide with the active ingredients being one of these organic substance. So for example, it might say the active ingredients in it is perithrin, or it might be um, neem oil, or whatever the case may be. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the pesticide is organic. So it is a good idea again to make sure that you read the label, and the label is saying that it is an organic pesticide, because a lot of times we may get fooled by the fact that the active ingredient in it is organic, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the entire pesticide is organic. So pay close attention to that and don't get tricked by these marketing suppliers. Let's see. LP says, no doubt. Princess says, great, John. My plants, beds, and soil are the first thing I'd move as well. My friends moving have to be convinced to move their garden soil. Really can't imagine building my soil all over. Yes, especially when you've had it for a lot of years and you put in a lot of work in there. Having to move without it and to start over can be a rather tedious task, not to mention the fact that soil is so expensive. So if you have to start over again, it would just be, it would not be a nice experience at all. Let's see. Princess is saying hi to Rodney. Okay. Rodney says, great point, LP, great topic. My father in law from Brazil told me that many of his fellow farmers don't have the patience to plant by the moon, so they choose to use synthetic pesticide as a shortcut. Yes, I can, if you are living in an area where the growing season is short, then I can see with those who choose to not follow the moon, like myself, as a mean of pest control. Because if we are to wait for the moon as a guidance here with a growing season that is only 3 months, chances are you won't be harvesting anything. But then going with the synthetic pesticide would not be an option for me at all. LP says, you're right, and watch out for the word natural. Doesn't mean that it's the natural you're thinking of. Yes, I agree with that too. Definitely, there are so many. They come up with so many little cunning terminologies on their packages that if you're not paying close attention, you can get easily tricked by it. But we're not fooled, are we? We're becoming more and more aware of the little tricks that they use, so we can look out for that. Let's see, princesses. A lot of work and so expensive. I just take them and bag them. LP says, right, exactly the mindset I was thinking, Rodney. Yeah, so those are some of the disadvantages of the synthetic pesticide. Now, unfortunately, some organic and synthetic pesticide are broad spectrum, and so because they are broad spectrum, they may harm or beneficial insects. And of course, when we use these broad spectrum pesticide, whether organic or synthetic, and we harm the beneficial insect, what that means is that we are going to have an increase in the amount of pests that we have to deal with the next growing season. So sometimes we just have to be patient, even though it might take longer and cost more. We just have to do it the better way because the long term benefit will outweigh that of trying to rush and using these broad spectrum pesticides. Yes, so again, very important. Pay attention to the labels. Watch out for the little cunning terminologies that they tend to use when they're marketing their products. Okay, so these are all the points on organic and synthetic pesticides that I want to share with you guys. So, do you guys use organic pesticides like store bought ones, or do you create your own? Or do you do a combination of both? I know there are some gardeners that don't really mind using, like, gardeners planting their own produce in their backyards, their home garden. They don't really pay much attention to whether it is organic or synthetic. That's something they're just not concerned about. But more and more people are getting really concerned about their health. And some people might not be very concerned about their health, but then when it comes to their pets, that they're very concerned about. So for that reason, they will try to be organic. I hardly ever use store bought pesticides. I do use diatomaceous earth and I do use the BT varieties, but I don't really follow the organic store bought ones much. I try to use my own pesticide. Fortunately for me, most of the pests that I've encountered can be combated with the things I have at home, whether it is my garlic or my neem oil or my worm castings. Love my worm castings. So good at controlling pests. Yeah, so I don't really use a lot of the store-bought organic pesticide, but synthetic pesticide is definitely a no-no for me. Let's see. LP says they drive me crazy with the egg packaging. Cafe free, free range, organic, natural. Yes, they have so many different terminologies out there, and sometimes, to be honest, some of them I don't even know what what they mean. CLB says not killing the good guys is a major reason why I don't want to use synthetic. That and my health, definitely. Let's see. John says none here. Randy says we work to create our own when we can and have little ones pluck off insects in the morning as morning chores. Oh, nice. Put those little guys to work. I'm sure it is a lot of fun for them too and good education for them. As they grow up, if they find themselves in situations, they can always grow their own produce and they know how to take good care of it because you're giving them all the training they need now. So Good job, Rodney. Let's see. LP says, I would like to make some of my own. 2022, I want to put worm tea to work. Yes, the worm tea definitely works pretty well. Let's see. John says, my finger works well, squishing the undesirables. Netting, a must for brassicas. Yes, I'm starting to see that definitely where my brassicas are concerned, I need to be using netting for that because man, the I don't really plant a lot of brassicas here, but in the last 2 years I've been increasing the amount of brassicas that I grow, and the pests and I are just fighting, and it seems as if they're winning. Yeah, I don't really grow a lot of each type of brassicas, but the few that I plant, the pests seem to be winning. So definitely, I'm going to have to create netting for that because I think I'm planting those vegetables because I want them, not for these pests to decimate them. So let's see. LP says, sorry, that should have said cage free. Okay, my phone has it out for me. Oh, cage free. Let's see. Oh, hi, her healthy home. Yes, I agree with you, Princess. I must not let them win. So this year I'm going to be doing all that I can to ensure that they don't win because, oh my goodness, the my Chinese cabbage, those are the things that the brassicas that I look forward to the most. And I don't know, I can't seem to win where they are concerned. They're just giving me a warm time with them. Admittedly, I haven't been treating them as much as I should. This year was a bit, the gardening this summer was a bit difficult for me because, as you guys know, that I injured my finger, so I couldn't do a lot. So a lot of the pests got out of control this time around. But I think next year I'll be ready for them. And so I'm definitely, at least I have the netting that I want to use around my brassicas already. So I just have to get my framing in place and get it all up and get those little guys under control. Let's see. LP says, I know Princess, but they put up one heck of a fight. That is so true. That is so true. John Hughes says, I grow them for the leaves mostly. Okay. LP says the leaves are their specialty. Yeah, this time around, I'm going to be growing, hopefully, all being well, I'm going to be growing a lot of the Chinese cabbage. So we'll see what happens. I think I want a whole raised bed of just Chinese cabbage this time around. So we'll see what happens with that, what fight I'm going to have with these little guys. But I think I'm having one major problem when it comes to growing my brassicas, though, because they tend to prefer the cooler climate, and the weather is just, the last 2 years, the weather is just terrible. Like, you start these things early and you figured, okay, I have a little leeway because I started early. But then by the time they reach a little distance, for some of them, they started bolting before they even reached like 6 inches tall. I'm going, what's going on here? The time, and then the weather is not that it is very hot sometimes, but because it is fluctuating so much, the poor little plants don't even know what to do. But anyway, hopefully next year I'll be able to. grow better brassicas. My kales do well. I don't really have much problem with them apart from the cabbage moth trying to eat it down. But apart from that, the kales usually do well. But the cabbages, whether Chinese or otherwise, they're not so fortunate at all. It seems as if the cabbage moth prefer these than the kale, maybe because the kale is harder. They're not so easy to chew on as the cabbages. Let's see. Princess is saying hi to her healthy home. How is the home family? Yes, I remember your net cage when I heard cat cages. Okay. Uh, you see, LP says, I think the longer season brassicas might do better planted late summer for fall harvest. Yeah, but that is the thing for my region, because I do think about doing that late fall or late summer planting, but it is tricky doing that because by September, sometimes you have to have everything harvested by the middle of September, or sometimes even earlier than that. So they don't really do so well because you never know when you're going to, the temperature is just going to drop really, really low, where even though they're cool weather crop, it's just too cool for them. This year wasn't too bad though, so I wish I had actually done that and get in some late cool weather crop, but unfortunately, I didn't know it was gonna last that long. So maybe next year I will try. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But yeah, definitely. Because I've tried last year. Yes, last year I started a late crop, lettuces and stuff like that, and I tried to grow the ones that doesn't really require a lot of growing time, a few weeks, and they didn't do well at all. They germinated and they started growing, but then the cold weather set in so fast that it was just a total waste. Let's see. LP says, same here. Kale holds up well. So does kohlrabi. Yeah, I've never grown kohlrabi. I want to, but I think I might try it this year if I can get the seeds. But I should be able to. I'm definitely going to try it because I hear it's good. You can actually use it to replace potatoes. So it will be interesting. LP says, I wonder if you could build a cover for your brassica bed for when it gets really, really cold because they're tough. Yeah, I guess I could. I could. It's just a matter of having the time. Yeah, it's just a matter of having the time to do so. But now that I've utilized all of my growing space, I can finally decide what region is going to be dedicated to what. And then for that reason, I can be specific in terms of turning particular beds into my cool weather crop beds. So everything that is on the south side is going to become my cool weather crop bed. So I can actually start building cage or netting for that. Let's see. LP says, I have Brussels sprout and collard that are still holding on after snow and cold. Wow. Granted, I don't get as cold or as snowy as you, but they're holding on. Well, that's quite nice. Last year, I tried to see if I could keep what was it? I had kale, the lacinato kale, and I had broccoli that I potted up and tried to see if I could get them to last a little longer outdoors in the winter, like the earlier part of winter. And they lasted a little bit long, and then we got a nice little freeze, and then That was it. I was quite disappointed though, but anyway, I guess that's that. But I'm definitely going to be, with time, building cage for those brassicas and see. So what I want to do is to build the cage for those beds so that I can cover them with netting when I want, and when I'm done with the netting I can cover it with plastic so it's kind of like a greenhouse, so it will hold a little heat for a little bit longer, and see how that works out. So that is my plan. Hopefully I can get it done this year. That would be fun. Let's see. LP says kohlrabi leaves are edible too, much like most, if not all, brassicas. Okay, good to know. LP says if you put up framing to use netting in the summer, you could just wrap the net over for plastic. Okay, yeah, yeah, yes, definitely you could do that. Let's see, Princess says, LP, I have tried to find your channel but not found. John says, that's what I do, LP. Okay, good. John says, I use cattle panel for the frame as it is about the most affordable frame. Okay, I shall look into that then. Yes, to use the PVC pipes, they can be, oh Lord, forever so expensive. So I was thinking of using wood to make the covers instead of those PVC. The good thing with the PVC, I don't really know much about the cattle panel, but the good thing with the PVC is that because it is rounded, so you know that it won't cause any tear in your netting and stuff like that. The wood, well, you could always spend the time to round the edges, but sometimes the edges can be sharp and tear your netting or tear your plastic. But I'll definitely look into the cattle panel and see how feasible it is in my region. LP says, I don't have a channel at this time, but thank you so much, Princess. Okay, yeah, so John says cattle panel can be shaped easily to provide a dome frame over beds. Oh, nice. I like that. I like that. So I'll definitely look into it. Let's see. John says if you have a feed store or tractor supply, here there are a few feed store a few distance down the road from me. Princess says, all right, LP, you are welcome. Okay, so yes, I'll definitely check out the feed store then. Yeah, it would be nice to get those netting up. In fact, I'd love to be able to cover all of my garden with the netting. Unfortunately, some of the plants, if you do that, especially for plants that loves the heat, it is going to reduce some of the heat. But I'd love to have netting on all of my garden because the pests are just getting out of control. And sometimes you say, okay, these are the type of pests that I'm having issues with. And then the following year, it is a different type of pest that you have to deal with. So always have to be making changes. So at least if I could cover all of the garden with netting, then that would be so nice because then I could get them under control. But let's see. Okay, Princess was looking for John's channel, and John says he doesn't have one. Okay. Yeah, so I am going to be saying goodbye to you guys shortly. Get my little skinny self off to work. Yes, it was a really nice discussion. I appreciate all of you guys and your participation and those practical suggestions and information that you've shared. Let's see. John says if the feed store doesn't have them, any farm or ranch supply. Okay, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, so looking forward to being with you guys again on Friday for another Worm Farm Q&A live discussion. Not sure what the topic will be yet, but looking forward to seeing you guys then. And sometime in January, after all the holiday rush has passed, I'll be having the draw for my 1,000 subscriber celebration. Let's see, LP says, yes, thank you for coming on and sharing your information with us. It's a good idea to be thinking now about how we might handle pests next garden. Yes, definitely agree. We don't want to wait until the last minute when the pests are already a problem. Then we're going to decide how we're going to handle them. So that is why I try to get these information out as early as possible. Let's see, LP says, all right, John, nice seeing you all. Happy holidays. If I can't make it Friday, have a good work night and great week. Okay, thanks, LP. Take care. Bye, everyone. I hope you have a lovely evening and stay safe. Okay. Thanks, Princess. Thanks, LP.